Did you think I would endure this forever? Did you think that as a mother, I would just stand by while you pushed my daughter to the point of sending me coded messages for help? I'm not the kind of person you thought I was, the kind who gets scared away. The moment you set your eyes on her, I set mine on you. You thought I couldn't see threats, couldn't hear her crying, couldn't spot your flaws. But from the very first coded message, I knew what you had prepared for her wasn't love, but danger. By the time he realized what was happening, his arrogance was already cracking. He went from questioning to panicking, from being forceful to begging. That wasn't a plot twist, it was the ending he'd walked himself into. And it all began the moment I stared at that text message from my daughter. I lowered my head and looked at my phone. Every word in her message hit me like a strike to the heart: dinner, library, running. These were codes we had agreed on when she was little. Simple words that could convey fear and a cry for help. Dinner, library, running, I repeated softly, my fingers tightening on the screen. She's telling me she's afraid of you. Derek lifted his hand, as if trying to stop me from coming closer. If you interfere again, I'll make you regret it. I didn't back down. I only smiled calmly. How scary do you think you are? Did you forget I taught her how to protect herself? Forget how smart she was as a child? You really think you can control her entire life? He stared at me, trying to gauge my next move. But I knew, today, I was no longer the same woman who could only worry helplessly about her daughter's safety. I had a plan. I was prepared. I was capable of handling the danger in front of me. I touched the phone screen lightly and typed my reply, slow and steady, each word like a blade. I'm coming to you right now. Derek's eyes darted between me and the phone. His expression shifted from a sneer to stiffness, his fingers clenching into a fist. I could feel that he understood this confrontation wasn't going to end easily. When Derek went back to his room, the house grew quiet again. I stood in the kitchen, leaning my hand on the table, my fingertips touching the cold surface of a forgotten cup of coffee. His cigarette smell still lingered in the air, mixed with the bitterness of the coffee, making it hard to breathe. I slowly sat down, my back tense as if someone were pressing against me. My phone screen was still lit up, showing those few words from my daughter. She used 3 codes: dinner, library, running. So simple, yet I knew exactly what they meant. Dinner meant unsafe. Library meant I need you. Running meant come quickly. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, pressing my fingers against my brow. Memories floated up unbidden, like bubbles rising from deep water, years of pressure forcing them to the surface. When I was young, I was the kind of person others thought was easy to bully. I worked as a cashier at a grocery store. My male supervisor liked to stand behind me when I was counting money, speaking in a joking but oppressive tone. Why are you always so slow? There were always customers waiting, and the more crowded it got, the more his voice echoed in my head, making me mess up even more. One time I gave the wrong change and got scolded by a customer. He pointed at my nose and said, "People like you shouldn't work in service." Other employees peeked from the side. I wanted to explain, but the supervisor shook his head. "Just shut up." I remembered that moment my whole life, not because of the humiliation, but because that suffocating feeling made me realize for the first time, some people won't give you a chance to explain. They only step on you harder when you're weak. I went home and told the whole story to my daughter. She was still little at the time, eating the baked potatoes I made while frowning. That man was so mean. I patted her head and said, "So you need to learn 3 things. See clearly who's hurting you, remember what they did, and never give them a second chance." She nodded earnestly, her small face serious. I only said it casually, but now I realize, those 3 sentences stayed with her. They stayed with me. Over the years, after countless moments of being ignored, threatened, belittled, I slowly understood something. You don't become strong overnight, life forces it out of you, inch by inch. Later, when she was in college, she once called to say a boy in her dorm kept following her and saying things that made her uncomfortable. I didn't tell her to report it immediately. I told her to watch where he usually appeared, remember every sentence that bothered her, avoid him, and wait for a safer moment before reacting. Avoiding someone isn't cowardice. It's waiting for the right time, I told her. During that period, she learned calmness. She learned to observe uncomfortable details, eyes, tone, sudden silences. And I learned something too. Protecting someone doesn't rely on shouting. It relies on patience and judgment. Now here I sat in the kitchen, palms slightly sweating, yet my mind unexpectedly clear. I realized life had been training me for this. Slowly and painfully shaping me into someone who could face danger head-on. I looked out the window. Kids rode bikes outside, neighbors' dogs barked, everything looked normal. But somewhere out of sight, my daughter was waiting for me. She had asked for help before, but this time was different. It wasn't a call, a voice, or tears. It was a code. That meant someone was monitoring her. Only in that situation would she use the code. My throat tightened. Memories of every little humiliation, every ignored moment, every forced silence strung themselves together like beads, reminding me. When you've been forced into silence for too long, you become calmer than anyone. When you've been stepped on too many times, you learn exactly when to stand up. I wasn't panicking. Instead, a quiet, cold power rose from somewhere deep inside me. I stood up, hung the tea towel back on its hook, and walked toward the living room. My movements were natural, like I was heading out to buy groceries. I did it on purpose. Derek might come out to check on me at any moment. I felt the car keys in my coat pocket, the cold metal reminding me. From here on, everything must be precise, calm, flawless. I opened the door, my heartbeat steady, my breathing smooth. One clear thought remained. I won't let her be alone. Even if no one else believes me, I will go to her step by step. The door clicked shut softly. I walked down the steps, every stride stepping on the memories of those humiliations, those moments that once silenced me. Now, I would not be silent. I had never been someone who was simply pushed along. Never. And now I was going to do what life had taught me to do over the years. Observe. Wait. Then strike. For her. And for the version of myself who once cried silently over a cash register. The black SUV left the school, but I didn't start my car immediately. That would be too noticeable. In such an empty campus area, a car suddenly following another would raise suspicion. I stood still and counted to 10. 10 seconds was enough for them to gain distance, and enough for me to push my emotions down. My fingers were cold. I put my hands in my pockets and focused on breathing steadily. Stay calm. The calmer you are, the easier it is to see their mistakes. Tonight wasn't the night for impulse. I walked to a dark alley and got into my car. I kept the lights off and turned on the engine. I looked at the map and mentally reviewed the roads. From the back gate of the school, heading north, there's only one main road. Farther up, it splits into three, the old district, the warehouse district, and the highway. For someone who wants to hide a person. The old district has too many witnesses. The highway is too easy to track. The warehouse area is the best choice. And I knew that place well, I had worked there before. I drove up the main road at an unremarkable speed, using only the streetlights to track them. After a few minutes, I saw a car turn left. Under the dim streetlight, its silhouette flashed briefly, black SUV. The first two digits of the plate matched. My heartbeat dropped, steady and heavy. They were heading toward the warehouse district. I slowed down, keeping 3 street lamps distance between us. The closer we got, the darker the environment became. The corrugated metal roofs looked like crouched beasts under the night sky. Lamps were broken, shadows deep, the area nearly silent. Near the third abandoned warehouse, the SUV slowed. My breath caught. The SUV stopped in front of a gray, peeling building. The rolling door was rusted. This was it. I parked 200 meters away in the shadows. Turning off the engine brought a thick silence. Even breathing sounded too loud. Through the window, I watched. The back door opened. Light spilled out. A small figure was pulled from the car. My daughter. I recognized her bag, the one I gave her last year. She moved lightly, too lightly, her steps unsteady with fear. 2 men followed her. A tall one in a gray hoodie. A stocky one in a black jacket, the driver. They didn't speak. One jerked his chin, motioning her to move. She walked toward the warehouse door like a puppet. My fingers clenched the fabric of my pants, knuckles whitening. But I stayed still. I couldn't rush in. If I confronted them alone, they might panic, hurt her, or escape. I looked at my phone. Calling the police was the only right choice. But I couldn't say, "I think my daughter is being taken." That wastes time. They needed to know instantly. This was an emergency with a precise location. I opened the recorder, placed the phone on my leg, and dialed. 911, what's your emergency? My voice was startlingly calm. My daughter has been taken into the abandoned warehouse C-17 in the North Storage District by 2 men. I have their license plate. I am watching them right now. She was forced out of the vehicle. Please dispatch officers immediately. Stay on the line. No, I whispered. If I keep talking, they'll hear. Send them to C-17. I'll stay hidden. Before they could object, I hung up. I knew it was risky, but if the dispatcher heard background noise, the men might hear too. I took a flashlight from the back seat and covered most of it with black tape, leaving only a narrow slit of light. I leaned back and watched the warehouse. They pushed her inside. The rolling door didn't fully close. A thin line of light leaked out. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep myself steady. Wait. I had to wait. For the faintest sound of sirens. Wind blew through the storage district, carrying the scent of rust and moisture. Every muscle in my body tensed. After 5 minutes, a distant siren sounded. A quiet spark ignited in my chest. The police lowered the siren as they approached, signaling they were close. I got out of my car, crouched, and moved through the shadows. The warehouse wall was cold and damp. When my hand brushed a rusted streak, fine dust clung to my skin. I reached the half-open rolling door and peered in. My daughter sat in a corner, her view blocked by the man in the gray hoodie. The stocky man stood in the center, tapping his phone. Why isn't the boss answering? We'll hold her for now. I'm not staying in this dump all night. Gray hoodie muttered, shut up. Close the door a bit more so she doesn't run. My daughter looked up briefly. Her eyes were red, but she didn't cry. That look, pushing fear down and staying stubborn, stabbed me deeply. I forced myself to look away. I gave myself 3 seconds. 3 seconds later, I had regained complete focus. Footsteps approached from behind the warehouse. A bright beam suddenly pierced the inside. Police. Hands where we can see them. The 2 men froze. The stocky man dropped his phone, face turning pale. What? Who called them? Gray hoodie cursed and reached toward my daughter. Now. I pushed the door open wider and stepped in, the narrow beam of my taped flashlight hitting his face. I growled. Touch her again. Go ahead. He turned toward me, and at that moment, officers burst through the side entrance, lights flooding the warehouse. Stop. Hands up. Gray hoodie hesitated, hands twitching. The stocky man tried to run but was tackled immediately. Handcuffs clicked sharply. Gray hoodie backed up with trembling hands raised. I didn't hurt her. We didn't hurt her. His voice shook uncontrollably, panic consuming him. I stared at him and said, "You laid hands on her the second you followed her." His lips trembled, fear overwhelming him. Officers approached. Suddenly he shouted at me. It wasn't my idea. Someone else told me. I don't want to go to jail, ma'am, please, just tell them she's fine. One word from you, just one. He was begging, breaking apart completely. But I looked at him coldly. For the first time in my life, I spoke with a tone like ice. Save your begging for someone who can help you. That's not me. Officers restrained him. He screamed again. Please. Please just say something. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. His voice cracked like he was about to cry. I watched his face shift from arrogance to anger, to panic, to complete fear and desperation. He thought saying, "It wasn't my idea," would excuse him. But the cuffs were already locked. His fate was his own doing. I didn't need to say another word. I turned toward my daughter. She swayed when she saw me. I held her shoulders. She felt weightless, like she'd been pulled from the water. "I'm here," I whispered. "You're safe now." Saying it made my throat tighten, but my voice stayed steady. She whispered, "Mom, how did you know I was here?" I held her cold hand and squeezed it gently. "Because you told me." Her tears finally fell, silent, trembling against my shoulder. Outside, officers escorted the men past us. The stocky one kept his head down, unable to look at me. The gray-hooded one kept glancing back, like a scared child caught doing something terrible, mumbling, "It wasn't my idea, please, please." His voice stretched thin in the cold wind, weak, helpless, defeated. I stood at the warehouse door, watching them get pushed into the police car. The door shut with a heavy metallic thud. And everything went silent. As if none of it had ever happened. My daughter held onto my hand lightly, as though afraid I might disappear. I looked up at the sky. The night was deep, but not oppressive. I knew everything I did tonight wasn't because I was especially brave. It was because no one belonged beside her more than I did. And because the moment I saw that coded message, I knew she needed me. Tonight, I came for her. And I succeeded.